I understand that some people were disappointed with the nature of West Ham's progression into the fourth round of the League Cup. Some were not too happy with the starting lineup that David Moyes put out against Lincoln City. I think ultimately, for me, it's very difficult for me to be upset about the aesthetics as something I didn't see. So let me just come clean on that. I didn't travel up to Lincoln. I didn't see the game because it wasn't broadcast anywhere. So the style of football ultimately didn't impact me. If we laboured towards what was ultimately a victory on a windy old night, we didn't use too many of the youngsters, but we got through anyway, then it's a job done. Albeit maybe not a job well done, but it is a job done. And you've only got to look at some of the other teams that went out in this competition to see that. I made the point last week when we played in Europe, which was, of course, look, we played in Europe. We laboured whilst we attacked against TSC quite a lot. We laboured. We found it quite difficult to break them down. Ultimately, we did that. Ultimately, we went through. We won. And I thought that was really important. Maybe, just maybe, Brighton played better than us, but they lost. Maybe Aston Villa played better than us in Europe, but they lost as well. So, as David Moyes would say, winning is what I do. I wouldn't quite put it that far, but we got through. And that's the main thing, because I really want to win trophies. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things I would have done and there are tweaks to that first team I would have made, because ultimately, if we are going to get rid of Ben Johnson, I don't really see the point in us blooding him as a fullback. I would much rather maybe Tilo Kehrer have played on the left and have seen Dan Chester start to see if really he is a viable option at right back, because he's had a great start to the season at right wing back. Ultimately, it was a very, very difficult game. From what I can hear, we did create a lot of chances. Apparently, we had a lot of corners. We were quite wasteful until eventually Tomas Soucek headed one in from side Benrahma's corner, which is absolutely great that happened. No doubt about it. So David Moyes won't care about all the peripheral noise. He'll just think, well, you know what? I got through. And not only did he get through, he got through whilst being able to rest so many of his really important players, like Lucas Paquetá, like Jared Bowen, Mikel Antonio, people who he will think are really very, very important to the team. He rested them. Emerson, of course. It's amazing how Emerson has gone from last season to not really sure whether he would get a starting place to this season being so far ahead in being the first choice left back that we're scrambling around for a viable option to cover him in case the worst happens. So Emerson, wrapping him in cotton wool was going to be very, very important to David Moyes, and that's what he did. So Moyes will look at that and think, rested my top stars. They didn't even travel. They stayed in London. They may well, and I suspect they did, have the whole of Wednesday off. So I'd imagine the last time they were in training was on Tuesday. The next time they're back in is on Thursday. And I would think that will probably do them quite well. So maybe in terms of management, overall, David Moyes got that well, even though the team selection might not have been too good and might not have been what everybody wanted. I'd like to have seen Earthy. I'd like to have seen Benrahma start, and I'd like to have seen Chester's. And not too much that I've heard about the game has persuaded me that I wouldn't have wanted that to happen. But ultimately, I'm happy we've gone through. I just want us to get through. I mentioned the other day that David Moyes has got a taste for winning trophies. Well, you know what? So have I. I want to win them as well. I want another cup run. So obviously, like everybody else, was a little bit disappointed that we'd drawn Arsenal in the next round, of course. I was more than happy to go through all the way to the final, drawing lower league teams. Particularly at the moment, because for the reason that I said, we do seem to get the job done against them. And, as I approach my 50th year on the planet, I've seen a lot of West Ham teams crumble and submit and not contest a game against lower league opposition. I know many a West Ham team who would have lost that windy night. Lincoln, you just lose the game. You really do, particularly with a team not up for it. And they were up for it. So I wouldn't have minded. Honestly, I'd be quite happy to face the dog and duck all the way to the final and then face the dog and duck again in the final. I don't have to think you've got to prove yourself. A trophy is only worthy if you can, beat Real Madrid and beat the Harlem Globetrotters and beat whoever else. No. So I'm disappointed to have drawn Arsenal. There's no doubt about it at all. I think if I could have chosen any team not to face, it would have been Arsenal. Arsenal have, it's just a personal preference, of course. Arsenal in the past few months have become my least favourite team. And then it's not just because of the Rice thing. They were on the way anyway. They really were. They were well on the way, Arsenal, to be in that. And a large part of it was, I think that their antics on the pitch, the time-wasting antics, I don't like. I find that quite difficult. The reason I'm very much in the UK, the two of the biggest time wasters are Brentford and Arsenal, and you know, I didn't like to see it. I always hated it from the moment. I can't remember who the injured player was from the moment Mikel Arteta dragged him onto the pitch and forced an injured player to go back onto the pitch to waste time to get the referee to stop the game. I was surprised. Not only that no card happened, I was surprised that the FA didn't drag him before a disciplinary hearing. I have an issue with Arteta. I can't abide watching him on the touchline. Gio had said for many years that he found it hard watching Wilfried Zaha because he's petulant. He throws tantrums. He also, I know he doesn't particularly enjoy watching Fernandes, the Portuguese player who plays for Manchester United. Again, very, very petulant. I find Arteta cut from exactly the same cloth. I find him, you know, just very, very difficult to watch. I'm surprised he doesn't have more altercations with opposition managers on the touchline. So I don't like that. When he gets compared to Guardiola, they're chalk and cheese. Guardiola is a gentleman who will say nice things about your club and seems to, you know, try and do his business in a respectful manner. And I just find, you know, Arteta the polar opposite. I also found it quite, you know, I find everyone knows a really nice Arsenal fan. Don't get me wrong. You know, you really do. The person you know is probably your mate. The online version of the Arsenal fans are the worst of the lot. So yeah, I would rather not have faced Arsenal again. And I think aside from that, they're a very, very good team. I'd rather play an easier team than Arsenal. There you go. I say it. For that, the whole Rice saga, playing Arsenal twice this season was enough for me. I didn't really need to play him a third time. That being said, I sort of would relish the opportunity to give him a bloody nose, really. And we were in the game, absolutely in the game, against Manchester City and in the game against Liverpool. And Arsenal are going to find it slightly different this season. Yes, they've spent a lot of money, but Arsenal are in a situation where it's not just like they're in the Champions League, but they're so good and they've built such a good team, and Arteta has. And don't get me wrong, he is a good coach. I'm not suggesting he's not, right? I just don't like him, right? He's built such a good team that they're expected to contest the Champions League to the point where Arsenal would, I'm sure, consider it a disappointment if they didn't reach. It's not for me to speak for them, but maybe the quarterfinals or the semi-final, whatever the case may be. They've spent big money compared to almost any club in Europe, so they would expect that. So but it's not easy playing in Europe. It's not easy, and then performing really to a high level in the Premier League. And they may well find that it curtails their Premier League push. They may well find that actually they're Arsenal's best opportunity to win the Premier League was actually last season, and the irony is that they were robbed of that opportunity by a really average display against Liverpool and then by Declan Rice. So they may well find it more difficult. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't necessarily play a fully fit team. Not fully fit, but you know what I mean. They might play a few reserve players. I'm not writing it off. I'm not dismissing our chances against Arsenal. Far from it. I'd like to think we can give it a really good go. Moyes will probably rotate, but Moyes has foresight in this sort of thing. And if we can notch up another win or two in Europe before we get to that game, and I should have checked the dates before recording this video, I haven't done, then that would be really good. If we can get to a point where we've got 9 points in the group, then Moyes, whilst that's not guaranteed qualification, Moyes can certainly look to field a really decent team against Arsenal. And what he has shown, whether you like his lineup, whether you like Moyes or not, he has demonstrated over 2 and a bit seasons now an ability to manage, particularly in the first half of the season, and I don't mean to belittle getting to knockout stages, particularly in the first half of the season, to manage a team playing weekend and midweek And it's something that maybe some of the other clubs, as I say, are not quite managing to do. And we just don't know whether Arsenal are going to be able to do it. I'm sure they can do it, but can they do it and sweep all before them? That's the answer. Can they play weekends and then midweek? Of course they bloody can. They've got a really good squad. Can they play midweek and the weekend and be the best? And last season they were very nearly the best. Well, I don't know. That remains to be seen. And whilst that remains to be seen, I think we're in with a chance. I really do. I think there's a few tweaks it's got to sort out. I'll deal with the other stuff another time. So I don't want to be overly, negative because we got through, and I'm really, really pleased. But I do think that there are still a couple of options with Moyes' team selection, and I'm talking about this sort of second string. I'm sure you can pretty much guess what they are. I'm sure many of you will share the same concerns. But ultimately, we got through. Good news. We drew Arsenal, really average news. But it's not over. Far from it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I certainly wouldn't write us off yet.